Hello my friends, welcome back to another video. Today is a long way today that we finally tackle the Ottomans. If you don't know, this is a series we've been doing where I give you guys a bunch of options to vote on in a poll like right here, and you guys vote on all of them, and then I show you the results of your polls in map form. This is just for fun, just a way to interact with you guys and see what you guys would do in this situation. Of course, you have the Kaiser LARPs, you have people who want to punish Germany even harder. It's very interesting to see all that. And here's where we are so far. Germany looks like this. Austria-Hungary looks like this now. Bulgaria looks like this. This is probably my least favorite one. I don't know what you guys are doing. But we have the opportunity for a much worse one today, or a much better one, and that is the Ottoman Empire. Of course, a very important part of the world, and a lot of stuff could go wrong with this one, but we will see. In reality, all of these parts of the Ottoman Empire were taken off, given to British and French mandates. Same with this kind of thing over here, with all this. And then the rest was carved up between the powers as well, including a Kurdish state right here, an Armenian state right here, a French state right here, an Italian state right here, and a Greek state right there, and then, etc. And by state, sorry for this, I mean just like an area of influence, quote unquote. But then Turkey was able to take it all back just a couple years later, thanks to Ataturk. I'm sure if you are Turkish, you are very happy at even hearing his name. Many of you are already familiar with that sort of thing. But I wanted to do this one. I didn't get to it earlier just because I had some stuff going on, but we are finally here. So I guess without further ado, let's get into this. The first question here is the question of Palestine. Ooh, this is a very important one, obviously. And you can see we have it right here. A lot of different options. I've tried to do a lot of different options for this whole thing. We have an option to give it to Italy, of all places, make it independent under the Arabs, make it independent under the Jews, give it to the Pan-Arabs, which is like a united Arab state. An option to keep it Ottoman, give it to Britain, or even attach it to Syria if we really wanted to. And you guys voted, actually with a pretty strong majority, to give it to the Jews for a Jewish state. So that is going to be an interesting choice here. Let's make it happen real quick. Boom! Okay, now we have an independent state for the Jews. This is already getting interesting, so to say. We will see if this is a part of a trend. Let's move on, and of course next is Transjordan. There's a lot of options here as well, but you can see a lot of them just did not get as much support. These are all very thin. You can not even see the percentage. And what won in the end was to give it to Palestine, or in this case Israel, but a very close, or not very close, but a strong second place was to give it to the Pan-Arabs. Let's see, for the Pan-Arabs over here, it was only 17.8%, so that's quite a big difference in support. But yeah, this is going to be given to Israel. Next up is Iraq. Now you can see I've split Iraq up into three sections: Iraq, Western Iraq, and the top part of Iraq, Mosul. And for the main part of Iraq, what won, again, pretty overwhelmingly, was to give it to the British. So the historical option for Iraq, very interesting. So I will quickly make this British. Alright, so there we go, a little bit more pink on the map. Now let's finish up Iraq quickly. Western Iraq, look at this. Of course, there's not really much to do with it, so I only had 4 options. But literally no one voted for it to remain Ottoman. Sorry, Turks. Only 4 people voted to give it to France. Only 10 people voted to give it to Iraq. And the vast majority, 69 people, decided to give it to a Pan-Arabs. And technically this is the first win-in for the Pan-Arabs, so I gotta give them their own color now. And let's go ahead and give it to the Pan-Arabs. Now lastly, to finish it off, we have the northern part of Iraq, Mosul. And I had a couple more options for this. Remain Ottoman, grant it to the Kurds, grant it to the British, grant it to the French, grant it to the Pan-Arabs. And overwhelmingly, again, for the second time in a row, landslide, the Kurds get it. The Kurds are also a new nation, so we have to give them a new color. But yeah, they're finally going to have land, a Kurdish state. Wow. A lot of people want this in alternate history just because it got so close, and because it has been so long since there's been a Kurdish state. So I guess that'll make them happy, and obviously there is quite a bit of support for the Kurds. Let us give it to them. Alright, Iraq has been carved up. Interesting choices here. And now we move on to the next part of the treaty, which is going to involve this territory. So let's move into it. The first one is Syria itself, and you can see this. We are done with the landslides for now. Now it's a lot more close. We have 90 votes and 64 votes, so only about a 30 vote difference, a little bit less than that between answers here. But the second place for this was to give it to the Pan-Arabs, and the first place was to do the historical option and give it to the French. So the French are going to take Syria here, although there was a very good fight for the Pan-Arabs actually giving Syria into full-on independence, which is pretty cool. And Italy taking the coast and France taking the interior, which was a interesting option. I'm surprised it got so much traction. But yeah, if these guys banded together, they could have easily beat this, but alas, no. Alright, so now we have French Syria in the Middle East. French and British are still able to colonize here, although of course some things are already quite different. We will now move over to Eastern Syria, which is this part east of the Euphrates River, roughly, of course. Don't judge this map too much. It's all for fun. I don't want to hear people complain about them like you would on maybe RWS or, sorry, GDR or whatever. But yeah, we're moving on to Eastern Syria, and as you can see here, another landslide, and it is for the Kurds. The Kurds have grabbed it up. The second place is 45% more down, and it's to give it to the Pan-Arabs, so the Arabs are getting it either way. But yeah, this is going to go to Kurdistan, our new Kurdish state. Now we move on to Lebanon, and we have another quite big majority here, although not as big as the other ones, and that is to, again, give it to the French. Lebanon is being given to the French. The second place was to give it to Italy, which really shocked me. Italy, of all things. I guess there's a lot of Italians or people who want Italy to have Mediterranean holdings after World War I in here. Very interesting. And then third place is for to join the Arabs. So again, independence was quite low. Remaining Ottoman, of course, as always, was very, very low. And grant to the British was also very low. So I guess Lebanon is going to be French too. So that concludes the kind of northern Arab parts of the Arabian Peninsula. Now we're going to move down briefly to Hejaz, which is this area over here where you have Mecca, all of that area. And for this, there wasn't too many options, but you can see here it can join any Pan-Arab state, it can be independent, it can remain Ottoman, or it can be granted to the British. And we had a very, very close race here between this and this. This won by one vote when I closed this form. Pretty crazy. So the Arabs just were able to swipe this by one vote. They got 34.5% of the vote. Oh, let us hope. There is a question later on that deals with the rest of Saudi Arabia. Let us hope that it gets unified into the Arabs. Otherwise, these borders will look quite messy. But let's give this to the Arabs, I guess. Alright, so now this little disconnected thing is on the world map. But as you can see, look, it's pretty much Turkey's modern borders. Now we're going to move on to the last part of today's video until we clean up this mess. And it's going to be dealing with Turkey itself. Now, as you can see, they have already lost some land up here to Bulgaria in the last video. So borders are already going to look different here no matter what, even if everything else stays the same. But we are going to move on, and the first question is Eastern Thrace. And as you can see, Turkish bros, it's so over. It's so over. Look at this. 21% to 79%. Ouch. 241 people to 63 people. Yep, Eastern Thrace is being given to Greece. So Greece bros are very happy, I'm sure. And let's also cover Istanbul at the same time. Istanbul, again, whooped ass, is back to Greece and also is being renamed to Constantinople. So Istanbul is no more. The granted to Russia option was interesting. That did not get much support. The remaining Ottoman option is not even that high. I mean, they've been beaten by this, making it an international city. But in the end, no. Istanbul will be Constantinople again in this little universe. I wonder how long that would last. But we're not thinking about that. We're just thinking about, in general. So let's do it. So boom, here we are. Greece is looking quite cool. Let's say we want about the Greeks or the Turks or whatever, but these borders are pretty neat so far. And Turkey has lost more territory already. We will see what happens now. Next up is Izmir. That is this area right here. And there's a couple different options for this. I could grant it to the Greeks, granted to the Greeks plus extra, remaining Ottoman, and granted to the Italians. There being 2 options for the Greeks makes it easier for the other 2 options to win, since that obviously splits the vote. But it just did not matter. 159 people went for this. For the Ottomans, only 58. If you combine these together, it's even worse. It's like 75% of the vote. So yeah, it's being granted to the Greeks plus extra territory. So I'm going to give Greece extra territory inland and then also to the north. Alright, boom. Greater Greece is pretty much all the way here. I've given them a lot of territory. Istanbul is gone. A lot of nice area for the Turks is now gone. And the Greeks are very happy. So let's move on to southwestern Anatolia. And there's a couple different options for here. They could also be given to the Greeks, but they could also be given to the Italians. They could remain Ottoman, of course. Be given to the French. Or be formed into an independent kingdom, which would be interesting. Now, historically, it was Italy. And it looks like another very close battle, actually, between an independent kingdom, which would have been pretty neat, and remaining Ottoman. But in the end, remaining Ottoman wins. So this is the first piece of territory where the Ottomans actually are able to hold on to something. Which I guess good for them. They finally got something. Or were able to keep something. So let's move on. Let's see how much more they can keep in Anatolia. Let's move on to Adana. That is this territory, roughly, right here. So that's what we're talking about. And it looks like this is also a very close vote between the French and the Kurds, actually. But the Kurds were able to win by only 2 votes. Now, the French had it historically, but the Kurds are going to gain it in this universe. Very good for them. Very bad for France, I guess. But let's give it to them. Alrighty, so this now is Kurdish territory. Again, let us hope that they are able to take Van, this area, so they can connect up. Otherwise, this will look pretty ugly. But we shall see. It is the area that the Kurds got historically, so I don't see why people wouldn't vote for that. Most people, I think, would at this point, based on what we're seeing here. But let's check it out. Go to Van. Okay. This is what I expected. Yep, it's getting given to the Kurds. Second place is it remaining Ottoman, and it is missing about 160 votes to get first place. This is now going to be Kurdistan. I'm also realizing now that I forgot to actually give a question for the British influence section of Turkey, which is this area roughly. So sorry about that. For simplicity's sake, I'll just give it to the Kurds. Alright, now next up, predictably, is going to be the Armenians. Now historically this was given, they were given, I think, about this territory. And I have a bunch of different options here for this area, which I think is right here. So you could give them an independent state. You could do the same, but push a little bit further. You could give it to Russian Armenia. You could have it remain Ottoman, of course. And I could even have an option to extend it further through Trebizond, which is this area right here, and give it to the Greeks, so more Greek land. Or I could actually have an option to give it to the USA, which is actually based on something that's not just baloney. So if you're interested, I would search up Wilsonian Armenia. It's a pretty interesting read. But as you can see, despite all of the options, quite a big landslide was achieved by an independent Armenia, but pushed further into Anatolia. So Turkey is getting boned even harder by now an independent Armenia. Alright, so boom, here we are, an independent Armenia. Quite odd with a not independent Armenia right there. But you can see we've put it where it's supposed to be, and we've also extended it a little bit further into Turkey, which means there's only one more Turkey relevant question, then we get on to some other side questions, and that is what to do with the rest. Do we split it up fully? Do we keep the empire in place, establish a republic, split it into independent kingdoms? Those are the options. And you guys voted for a Turkish republic with only 1 vote separating you guys. The other option was to split it fully, so it was between a very extreme option and not extreme option. But I guess a Turkish republic being instated does have some sort of impact. But yeah, that means that these are the new borders, at least for now. Probably only last a little bit, to be honest. But these are technically the new borders for the Turkish Republic. I guess they have their capital. That's cool. But yeah, not looking too good. I do like this map. It's pretty interesting. Although the map is getting a little dirty at this point. There's a lot of mess ups and it's quite annoying to do. I will eventually revamp it so it looks prettier again, or maybe I'll ask someone to do it. But I'm kind of waiting. I'm thinking I might add in another episode for Russia. So either this will be the last episode, or we'll have an episode with the fate of Russia. So yeah, that will be the last one if that happens. But yeah, a couple more questions. Let's move into it. They mostly revolve around Arabia. There's one more question about the Turkish area. Should the Armenia and Kurd zones, if they exist, unite into a federation? This would be one big state. It'd be pretty cool, but no. They want to stay separate. Makes sense, I guess, since they are alive currently. It makes sense. Now, this is an important one. Will the areas that make up the modern Saudi Arabia unite or stay fractured? This is basically asking, do we keep it like this, or do we give it to the Pan-Arabs? It's not written very well, but that's what it means. And you guys voted overwhelmingly to unite it. So this is all going to be Pan-Arab land. Let's do it. Alright, boom. There we go. Our Pan-Arab state is now united. It basically is just Saudi Arabia plus Western Iraq. But try to ignore that. It's kind of a shame because they got so close to getting a lot of territory. They were second place in a lot of these polls, but it just did not pan out. Maybe if a couple more people, like 5 more people, voted their way, we'd be looking at a lot bigger Pan-Arabia, but maybe just them existing at all will be good in the long run. We have one more question, and that is, in the event of a Pan-Arab state being formed, should possessions like Oman, Bahrain, crucial states be ceded to the Arabs in exchange for much more British influence in the state? So basically giving all of this to Arabia, which would be huge. But they said no. And not only did they say no, they said no, and instead expand British Kuwait, Oman, etc. at expense of the Arabs for more control. So that is a shame. I guess we're going to give these guys a little bit more territory. Let's do it. So boom, there we go. This is our final map for the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans survive, or sorry, the Turks, the Republic of Turkey, survive here and here. This is independent Armenia. We have a huge Kurdish state that goes from Mosul to all the way to the Mediterranean right here. We have a massive Greece this way. We have a French Syria and a British Iraq, a Jewish state right here, and then we have a Pan-Arab state that is beginning to form, I guess, but it has been hampered in the south, in the east, and over here just by British land grabs. We will see what happens with those, or I guess we won't, but people in this timeline would. And let me know, should I do an episode on what happens with the Russian Empire, or should we leave it here? If we leave it here, I'll try to make, or get someone to make, a more detailed map, so we can look at that and it can look a lot more pretty. But if not, we can do that after the Russian stuff is all done. But either way, I hope you had a good time watching. I hope this has been pretty interesting for you. It has been pretty fun to look at what you guys wanted to do with the World War I treaties. I'll definitely do something similar to this again. Yeah, so that is about it. You guys have a good rest of your day or night. See ya.